Greetings, my name's Sky, and today I'm here to give a little education and help where I see it needed. So many times I find myself on YouTube looking for how-tos or what not to do, maybe that's the case, maybe what not to do. But ultimately it's to educate myself on a project, a job, something I may be interested in or may be working on, and I want to know the ins and outs before I ever dive in, because like so many of you, my brain tells me to educate before I do anything. Measure twice, cut once. I like to do that on just about everything I do. And today, I'm working on a Kawasaki Mule Pro FXT 2015 model electric power steering. Tell you a little story, a little backstory. Here she is, as you can see. Nice camouflage unit. Friend of mine calls me and says, hey, I was in a bit of an accident with my mule. And I said, man, what's going on? What happened? Well, he was out working his cows in a high fence organization. Big, tall fence, hunting camp. And he was cutting a cow away from a calf while riding in his trusty mule back here. And he was approaching the high fence at a rapid rate of speed, and he decided to take the trail which runs along the side of the high fence instead of approaching it at a 45-degree angle. As he made the transition to that trail going along the fence, the passenger side front tire digs into a sand rut. And when I say sand, here in Kent County, it's very deep sugar sand with oak shinry, as we call it, which are little 3 to 6 foot oak trees all over the place. Very deep bottomless sand, like being at the beach or the sand dunes. He did nothing out of the ordinary that you would have done if, say, you were using your unit at the sand dunes, turned, hit a rut. In this instance, as he did so, it ripped the front passenger side tire out, breaking the front control arm, bottom control arm, the steering gear just before what would be the connecting point going into the actual hub itself. It's a ball joint, breaking it clean in half. And in doing so, he come to a rapid stop, which is a lucky thing because it dropped like an anchor and stopped him very well before he proceeded into this high fence, which probably would have been a bad situation. Another note, please wear your seatbelts. Life is fragile. Besides that, he spends the rest of his day digging this thing out of the fence and out of the sand and licks his wounds, and then he calls me. I agree that I believe I can fix it for him because that's what I like to do. I proceed to his property, take the trailer. He meets me at the front gate, very humble, a little hurt, but he's okay. He gives me the story. We go and find the mule out in the pasture. It's broken. You can see the hole where he had dug the thing out, tried to move it in four-wheel drive, because when this happens, you're stuck. There was no moving it. He was able to get about 25 feet of movement in several hours of trying. Once I got there, we assessed the situation. I dropped the dolly, the trailer down, got it to the front of it. And then realized real quick we'd have to use the rear tires to steer and pull it onto the trailer. We didn't try to winch it at this time. So I bring the trailer around, come to the rear, drop the rear gates, and he gets in it and puts it in reverse, take it out of four-wheel drive. This is key. Because as you put this thing on the trailer with a broken tie rod to the steering and the control arm being bent in this fashion that it was dead in the water. So you have to take your big bear claws, wrestle that tire up onto the trailer. So you're going to steer the passenger side of this rig, or if it's a driver's side, whatever may happen in your case. So remember that. Wear your gloves and watch your fingers and toes, kids. This thing is very heavy. Now back to the story. We get it put together on the trailer, strapped down. We talk about OEM parts, which I only recommend because if you buy something aftermarket, a lot of times there's no service after the sale or it's a inferior product. Kawasaki did it right the first time in making it, so let's continue that. That's the way I believe it. Now you may say, well, but this thing broke and it was original parts. Yes, but a little more backstory is this machine sits approximately 3 inches higher than mine, which is a stock ride Kawasaki Mule 2019 Pro FXT. So I'm aware of there being a lift on this, a little bit taller tire, which for some of you may understand that it changes the geometry of how this thing handles. So you start flexing and giving more wear points and putting stress on things that aren't normally stressed in this fashion from the factory. The engineers decided that it worked flawlessly to their standards from the factory at that ride height. And there are many companies out there that offer 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch lifts on up. Some of them are shims, some of them are complete shock absorber kits. You can spend a lot of money on this, but you can also spend a lot of money after the fact because the wear and tear that it causes on points of contact that were not meant to be stretched like that. Ball joints, anything to do with the front suspension is now squatted down at a much different angle than what it was intended to by the factory. So you're going to wear on your machine. And I'm not bad-mouthing any of this. I'm saying that that's something you need to maintain and watch in your everyday travels, weekend warriors, whatever, that you've added this to the machine. And it's another spot to maintain and to check regularly on your walk-around. Walk-arounds are key. They'll save your life and save you money. So I know it sits higher, not that much higher than mine, but the front A-arms, the control arms, are the same length. Lucky for him, so we're able to buy an OEM control arm. Front steering rack, steering gear, same size as original. So we were able to order parts from the Kawasaki dealer. Thank you, Max's. Great guys. You know, and I believe that there's nothing he could have done to change this. He was using it correctly for the application and what he thought it was intended for. And I believe that was what it was intended for, to drive it as such. If you were at the dunes and you would have hit this type of wash as you were angling across and it ripped it off, you'd have flipped, been hurt, same scenario. So it's something I just want to educate. And today I'm going to show you how I struggle to get it apart because I've never done this. And as I go on YouTube, there is no video as of today's date. Here we are, 1st of November, 2019, and I've searched and searched and searched for 2 weeks looking for some sort of video schematic of somebody doing it, a blog. There's not much out there on these machines, and they've sold a bunch of them. So today, I'd like to at least give you a view into what it looks like underneath this thing. So if it happens to you, you can sit down before you ever tackle the job and actually know what's there, what's not there, parts involved, tools, how not to cut these off while you're working on it. Hopefully I don't do that today. We don't want to have that learning lesson. But ultimately, it's to make sure that you can educate yourself. Sorry, the heater's pretty warm. You can educate yourself on how to do this process correctly, efficiently, and safely. Because I don't know what I'm getting into today more than I have a box full of parts, 2 of them to be exact, somewhere around $1,200 worth of parts. Actually, a little north of that. For this one incident. I'm not going to say that the lift kit was all to blame. I believe it put undue stress on some parts that probably didn't need to have it. I'm fairly certain of that, but we can't prove it. So today is for you to make your own assumptions on that, and if you can actually do this job, because ultimately it's about saving money. And if you and I can do this in our garage with our tools that we've already invested in, there's a lot of cost to be saved, and that's more fun out in the road, out in the field, get you back on the road. And you really enjoy it more that way. It's something I enjoy, and I hope you do too. And so today, come with me. We're going to go into this machine, and we're going to figure out how to do this together so that when it happens to you, you'll be prepared, and you'll say, thanks, Sky. You showed me what to do, and I don't want to do it. I'm taking it to the dealership, or pull the tools out, boys. It's going to be a long night. My favorite. Greetings, back again. Today, we're going to do the work on this Kawasaki Mule. This is part 2 to this video. Story time was part 1. Today, we're gonna get dirty. We're gonna lay under it. I'm gonna show you what has to come off, what doesn't have to come off. Again, I'm learning on all this, so I really don't know the ins and outs for sure. I have some already disassembled. I'll walk you through that and show you, and then we'll be removing some skid plates. Getting to that steering gear, there's 3 bolts that you have to get to, and you have to disassemble to get to it. So join me. So here we are. Meet the cat. Meet the other cat. There's another one here somewhere. Heater's going over there. Nice and warm. So here we are. This is the Mule. When he came into contact with the sand, as you can already tell, there's some definite problems with that. When you would look over here and everything's nice and true and straight. But as we venture to this side, you can see some definite problems. This was destroyed in the impact. This little dangly item right back here, see it? That's your steering gear arm. Goes to the knuckle, which is a U-joint. Runs up the body. You can kind of see it back there. There's a bolt there, and there's that top bolt. You have to take the skid plates off of this rig to access that top bolt, no matter how much you cuss and scream. So today I'm going to show you how to get that steering out, as well as replace this linkage, get this tire to not do that anymore, because that tire is not supposed to do that. And another thing, when you do something like this to it, remember you're going to have to steer that thing yourself as someone else drives the unit. So you're going to put your big old bear claws on that and get it up the trailer and off the trailer. Watch your fingers and toes, kids. This thing's heavy. Alright, let's take a look. So as you can see, this control arm is supposed to be flat. Be a bit of a wompy jaw there. In doing this project, you will have to take off this jewel here. Brass hammer is key to remove things, because these ball joints are secured quite well. Don't damage those threads unless you're replacing them. This can just hang freely. Don't forget, you've got to take your brake caliper off. There's one bolt that hangs here, secondary. Today's situation is we're going to try to remove this whole unit from in that hole. As you can see, it's a bit of a chore. Sorry for the lighting. The GoPros are on their way, but Samsung has taken the place of that today to make sure we can get this video documented for you guys. I'm going to lay up underneath here and show you skid plates. When you put your jack stands under it, you will have to be sure that you do not get in the way of that skid plate here, because it has to come off. There's 2 skid plates. That's the first section. Second section. As you can see, it is crammed full of grass and debris. It's part of this situation. We need to debris most of that. But this here comes off to be able to receive, or actually even come into contact with where that steering gear is bolted in. So, looks like it's a Phillips. Let me get things together and get this thing off, and I'll show you what's inside. Alright, back again. As you can see, to take the front skid plate off, screws and washers have to come off. Don't lose them. I say that because you have a lot of trash that typically pours out from underneath one of these units. Let me show you. So here we are. There's the lovely skid plate. We have an entire pasture. Could probably plant it, water it, and have it come right back up next year. So, remember, watch your eyes when you do this. This is one of the biggest flaws with the Kawasaki, whether it's a 2015 or a 2020. They catch everything that is on the ground and it passes through into this belly. Fire hazard, rat nest, lots of problems there. as we dig a little deeper, let's take a look at these bolts we're chasing for that steering gear. Here's a shot underneath it. Got shaft, drive shaft unit going forward, throttle linkage and various controls. Radiator here. That's the tube running up to it. As we pass up here, inside this area is where the bolts are. Let's get a flashlight and see what we can see. Alright, back with a flashlight. Here is bolt number 1, bolt number 2, bolt number 3, as you can see. Without that skid plate, it becomes a much easier item to try to get a hold of. And quite frankly, is really the only way you're going to be able to do it and actually not tear anything up, from my way of looking at this point. Let's put some tools on it, shall we, and see what it looks like when we get it out of here. Be back with you in a minute. Welcome, folks. Just a little update. 2015 Kawasaki Mule Pro FXT electric power steering. As you remember, it was in a bit of an accident. Front damage over there. We've got a new control arm, new steering gear, rack and pinion. This lovely jewel, on top of all the other work, has a 2-inch super ATV lift on it, which I'm having to compensate for. Careful though, cat. So when we look underneath it, you can look at where the frame attaches, and you've got 2 sets of bolts here. That is part of the 2-inch lift. Same in the rear. Rear's a little more evident because of the way the frame is set up. Hard to see from here. It's got holes in it. Well, because of that, we had an issue with rack and pinion matching. So these here are curved on the 2-inch lift. They put a Z-bar, as they call it, from the factory. Well, excuse me, not from the factory, but from superatv.com. Their lift to offset the rack and pinion on the steering gear to make it actually fit. Now, as I come over here, I can show you on this table. Here is the offset Z-bar. I'm currently awaiting, hopefully tomorrow, for a new set of Z-bars. Super ATV is a great company. One of the best things about their company is the fact that they warranted, lifetime warranty, that Z-bar. Really any component with this lift. So they are shipping me, free of charge, new Z-bar for this side, new Z-bar for this side. So when you're going to do this, you're going to cut the clips off, metal bands. This one is removable. You're going to reuse it. You're going to reach in here and pull this off. You're going to get a hold of this right here. Make that focus. Get a hold of this here. Back it off. The new Z-bar will go on, but before you do that, you do want to make sure you put your knuckle ball joint back on the Z-bar as well. Count your threads so we can actually get it back on there with some sort of similarity to where it was on the way the pitch on the tires sit on the ground. Probably going to have to do a little bit of adjustment on that, but for now, I just wanted to let you see exactly how I'm having to handle this issue. I do believe we've got everything done at this point to where we can actually put this thing back together tomorrow. Had to press new rubbers into this rig here, courtesy of a press. If you don't have one, get you one. Definitely worth the non-finger slamming. But anyways, just wanted to give you a heads up and an update. And just a little eye view of what this thing looks like from the bent angle. As you can see, that thing is sitting all sorts of wrong. But anyways, I will let you know where we sit tomorrow, hopefully, with this thing. If all goes well, she'll be running. Here we are with the skid plate, just to give you a little better idea what it looks like. corn, bottle caps, large cat. Hello, Mr. Magoo. Definitely something you should take care of on your walk-arounds, at least when you service the oil. I would definitely pull your skid plates off, clean it, just so you can protect your investment and you don't lose it to a fire, because that's a real hazard in these dry conditions that we have here in West Texas.
Kent County Volunteer Fire Department, 1022. It landed safely.